Why do the same struggles keep repeating, only in different forms? Why does one difficult relationship end only for a strangely similar one to begin? Why do the same issues around self-worth, boundaries, shame, control, or self-sabotage seem to come back time and time again? Why does life so often feel as though it's circling around the same unresolved and unfinished lessons? This is because very often what we call a problem is not just a problem, it's a pattern. And more than that, it may be an archetypal pattern, a recurring structure of experience that is still asking to be seen, understood, and wisdom gained so that it can be transformed. And this is one of the reasons the Major Arcana can be so powerful, because they don't just describe isolated events. They describe deeper recurring movements of human evolution. They help us see not only what is happening, but what kind of pattern we may be living inside of. Welcome back to Tarot Major Arcana. In the previous videos, I've been exploring the Major Arcana as living archetypal patterns, as a journey of inner transformation and as a tool for self-development rather than fortune-telling. In this video, I want to explore something deeply relevant to almost everyone. Why do the same life patterns keep repeating? Why do we encounter the same kinds of struggles in different disguises? And how can the Major Arcana help us understand repetition, shadow, and the deeper structures that keep shaping our lives? Once you begin to see repetition archetypally, something profound changes. You can stop seeing and accepting life as only random or unlucky, because you begin to see patterns where before there was only frustration. I've actually just recently published a comprehensive book where I go into the most insightful details of each of the 22 archetypes, from their healthy, blocked, and shadow aspects, where I explain what it means and what you can do about it. The book is called, obviously enough, The Tarot Major Arcana. You can get it on Amazon. I'll put a link to it in the description below this video. One of the most important things to understand is that repeated struggle is very rarely meaningless. Now, that doesn't mean everything that happens to us is our fault, and it doesn't mean that every painful experience is simply something we're attracting. But it does mean that when similar themes keep returning, especially over many years, there's usually something deeper going on than just bad luck. People repeat patterns in relationships. They repeat patterns in conflict. They repeat patterns in self-abandonment and patterns in overgiving. They repeat patterns in shame. They repeat patterns in collapse just before success. And they repeat patterns in choosing the familiar, even when the familiar is painful and never actually works. And often the person experiencing it already knows this on some level. They may say things like, "Why does this always keep happening to me? I thought I dealt with this. Why do I keep ending up here? Why does it always come back in another form?" Those are important questions because they point towards the existence of a deeper pattern beneath the changing surface details. This is where the Major Arcana can become so useful, because the Major Arcana are not only symbols for one-time life experiences, they are recurring archetypal structures. They represent the kind of patterns human beings return to again and again until something essential has been seen more clearly or lived more consciously. For example, if someone repeatedly lives a shadow or blocked lover's pattern, not necessarily because romance is the central issue, but because they keep facing the same deeper questions around attachment, vulnerability, projection, choice, and values alignment. Another person may repeatedly live a shadow or blocked emperor pattern. They may keep encountering issues around authority, boundaries, structure, control, father patterning, or the inability to hold firm form when under pressure. Someone else may repeatedly move through a shadow or blocked devil pattern with compulsion, shame, attachment issues, and false bondage. They have that sense of being trapped in something that weakens them, but still feels impossible to leave. When the Major Arcana are understood in this way, they stop being just meanings. They become maps of recurring human experience. One of the reasons patterns repeat is that archetypal energy is not always being lived in a healthy way. This is where one of the most important distinctions comes in. Every archetype can be expressed in a healthy, blocked, or shadow form. A healthy expression of an archetype supports life, growth, and integration. A blocked expression means the energy is underdeveloped, inaccessible, feared, or avoided. A shadow expression means the energy is distorted through defense, overcompensation, shame, projection, or compulsion. So, for example, a healthy Empress gives nourishment, receptivity, warmth, and healthy emotional abundance. A blocked Empress may struggle with receiving, feel depleted, or disconnected from pleasure and care. A shadow Empress may overgive, overmother, engulf, or disappear into caretaking. A healthy Emperor gives structure, boundary, clarity, and grounded authority. A blocked Emperor may show up as weak boundaries, passivity, or collapse under responsibility. A shadow Emperor may show up as control, rigidity, domination, or conflict with authority everywhere. Healthy Strength archetype regulates intensity with calm presence. Blocked Strength fears strong feelings and collapses under pressure. Shadow Strength suppresses controls or hardens against instinct. If the energy remains blocked or shadowed, the pattern often repeats, because life keeps bringing us back into contact with what's not yet been integrated. Oh, and if this way of looking at tarot speaks to you, do like the video and subscribe to the channel, because we'll be exploring the 22 Major Arcana as a path of archetypal awakening, inner transformation, and deeper self-understanding in a full enlightening series of videos over the coming weeks and months. Relationships, especially romantic relationships, are one of the clearest places where repetition shows itself. A person may keep meeting different partners, but the same pattern. Different faces, same emotional dynamic. Different story, same wound. Different beginning, same ending. Why? Because relationships constantly archetypal material very powerfully. They bring up projection, longing, unmet developmental needs, authority dynamics, abandonment wounds, engulfment fears, desire for rescue, shame, self-betrayal, fear of true vulnerability. A repeated lover's pattern may involve projection, confusion between longing and truth, or repeated inability to choose consciously. A repeated High Priestess pattern may involve emotional withdrawal, hiddenness, or unspoken truth. A repeated Devil pattern may involve attachment to what is painful, addictive, dysfunctional relationship loops, or false bondage through chemistry or need. A repeated Emperor or Empress pattern may show up through issues around structure, care, safety, and role imbalance. What matters is that the surface situation may change, but the archetypal structure remains. And once that is seen, the real work can begin. Patterns don't only repeat in relationships, they also repeat in the way we relate to ourselves. For example, some may repeatedly say yes, where in actual fact they really mean no. They may overgive, over-accommodate, and then quietly build resentment around it. That may point to a blocked Emperor, where healthy boundaries and self-command are weak. It may also point to a shadow Empress, where care becomes self-deprecating and diminishing. Or if someone else repeatedly dims themselves, avoids visibility, or shrinks in the presence of a stronger personality, this may reflect a blocked Sun or blocked Magician, or an unresolved authority pattern involving the Emperor or Justice. Someone may keep beginning things beautifully and then abandoning them halfway through. That might involve the Fool, the Magician, the World when blocked or shadow form. Another may repeatedly sabotage themselves just before the point of fulfillment. This is often not laziness or lack of talent. It may be a deeper anti-completion pattern, a fear of landing, a fear of being fully seen, a fear of becoming someone who can actually hold what they say that they want. And again, this is where the Major Arcana can help enormously. They allow us to see not only behaviour, but structure. Not just the symptom, but the pattern beneath it. Now, shadow is one of the deepest reasons patterns repeat, because what is unconscious doesn't simply disappear. It continues to shape perception, reaction, attraction, and behaviour until it's brought into awareness. If a person has disowned anger, they may repeatedly attract controlling people or situations that bring up a suppressed angst against power and control. If a person has disowned healthy authority, they may either collapse under stronger personalities or become compulsively oppositional towards authority figures. If a person has disowned desire, they may live in hidden compulsion. If they've disowned vulnerability, they may keep repeating intimacy problems. If they've disowned worth, they may stay bonded to relationships or environments that confirm a diminished self-image. This is why patterns can feel so strangely fated, because what's unconscious doesn't feel like choice. It feels like life. It feels like reality. But in many cases, it's actually a repeated archetypal pattern moving beneath conscious awareness. And the goal of shadow work is not self-blame. It's conscious seeing, because what can be seen more clearly can eventually be related to much differently. So why does life keep repeating the same themes? Not because life's cruel, and not because you're being punished in any way, but often because something remains unfinished, something has not yet been integrated, something is still being avoided, projected, distorted, or lived through as an old defensive structure. Life repeats the patterns because the pattern is still active, because the lesson is not simply intellectual, it's structural, it's emotional, it's archetypal. It's asking to be lived differently, not merely understood abstractly. And this is why insight alone is sometimes not enough. A person may know consciously that they always overgive, or always choose unavailable partners, or always sabotage themselves near completion. But until the deeper archetypal structure has been seen and worked with, the repetition often continues, because the pattern is not only mental, it has become embodied emotionally, relationally, and symbolically, sometimes even all the way down to the core identity level. So instead of asking only, why does this keep happening to me, it can be much more powerful to ask, what pattern keeps repeating here for me? What archetypal energy might I be living through? What is blocked within me? What is shadowed within me? What am I still identifying with? What am I still avoiding? What healthier form of this archetype is trying to emerge? These are far deeper and more productive questions, and they bring us into a different relationship with repetition. Not helplessness, not self-condemnation, but pattern recognition. And pattern recognition is the beginning of transformation, because once you see the pattern, you can stop treating each repetition as though it were entirely new. You begin to recognize the shape of it and the form of it, and then you can begin to meet it more consciously. This is why the Major Arcana are so valuable. They help us name the recurring structure. They help us identify whether the pattern is healthy, blocked, or shadowed. They help us understand the deeper movement underneath the problem, and they help us to ask what life may now be asking for. Not, how do I escape this as quickly as possible, but what is this trying to show me? What must be strengthened? What must be released? What must be healed? What must be integrated? That's where personal transformation begins, not when the pattern disappears by magic, but when it's finally seen for what it is. And once it's seen, it can be met differently. So if you keep repeating the same life patterns, it may be because you're not only dealing with an isolated problem, you may be living inside a recurring archetypal structure, a blocked pattern or a shadowed pattern, or an unfinished lesson of the psyche. And the Major Arcana can help you to see all of it much more clearly. They can help you recognize what is repeating, what is hidden, what is unintegrated, and what kind of transformation may now be needed. This is one of the deepest gifts of the tarot. It helps turn confusion into pattern, and pattern into conscious transformation. If this does resonate with you, then please do subscribe to the channel, because in the next videos I'll keep exploring the deeper patterns, shadow work, and transformational pathways of the 22 Major Arcana. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you in the next video.